In the early morning haze of a fading empire, a city once called the Eternal City began to crumble not with the roar of battle, but with the silence of decay. Rome, the mighty capital of the greatest empire the ancient world had ever known, did not fall in a single day, nor did it collapse in a blaze of glory. Its fall was a slow unraveling, a story not of sudden destruction, but of erosion of values, leadership, economy, borders, and belief. It is a cautionary tale, a whisper echoing through time. Even the most powerful can fade, not with a bang, but with a whimper. The Roman Empire was born from strength, forged in the fires of ambition and conquest. Its legions conquered lands far and wide, stretching from the green hills of Britain to the burning sands of Egypt, from the Atlantic Ocean to the banks of the Euphrates. For centuries, its people believed it invincible. Its roads, aqueducts, and cities bore testimony to its engineering genius. Its armies were feared. Its law was revered. And its culture, Latin, architecture, citizenship, was woven into the fabric of civilization. Rome was more than a place. It was a way of life. But even the strongest stone crumbles when the foundations crack. It began with small ones at first, barely visible, a widening wealth gap, a growing dependence on slave labor, political corruption seeping into every level of government. The Senate, once a revered institution of noble minds and civic debate, had become a den of self-serving elites, driven more by personal gain than public duty. Emperors rose and fell like leaves in the wind, some murdered by their own guards, others weakened by their own vanity and excess. Leadership became unstable, and with it, the empire began to stagger under its own weight. As Rome expanded, so too did the challenges of governing such vast territories. Communication across the empire could take weeks. Governors in distant provinces acted more like kings than Roman servants. Taxes grew heavier, crushing the peasantry. Food shortages led to riots. Plague swept through the cities, further weakening the population. And in the shadows of the empire's grandeur, outside its fortified borders, new powers stirred. The Germanic tribes, Visigoths, Vandals, Ostrogoths, long seen as barbarians by the Romans, had begun to unite. To Rome's dismay, these so-called barbarians were no longer content with tribute or trade. They had tasted Roman wealth, envied its cities, and began to see conquest as a viable path to prosperity. Yet the Romans, once the masters of war, were no longer what they used to be. The once mighty legions had become hollow. Many soldiers were now mercenaries, with no loyalty to Rome, only to coin. As the barbarians pressed harder on the empire's frontiers, the defense lines crumbled. In 410 AD, the unthinkable happened. Rome, the city that had not been sacked in over 800 years, was overrun by the Visigoths under King Alaric. The Eternal City burned. Its citizens screamed. Its temples were looted. The news sent shockwaves throughout the empire and the known world. People wept, not just for their homes, but for the idea of Rome itself. If Rome could fall, then nothing was sacred. But even then, the Western Roman Empire struggled, unwounded, weakened, but not yet dead. For decades after the sack, emperors still sat on shaky thrones. They issued laws, collected taxes, and marched armies, but it was all shadow play. The real power had shifted away from Rome and toward the generals, the warlords, and eventually the invading tribes. Meanwhile, Christianity had taken root in the empire, spreading like wildfire since the days of persecution. What began as a small underground faith had now become the dominant religion. In 313 AD, Emperor Constantine legalized Christianity, and later, it became the state religion. Pagan temples were abandoned. Roman gods were forgotten. And while the Christian church brought hope to many, it also added new tensions to the empire. Religious divisions began to appear. Debates over doctrine turned violent. Bishops held more influence than governors. And the unity once provided by Roman tradition was now fractured by competing beliefs. The division of the empire into East and West in 285 AD by Emperor Diocletian was meant to save it. The idea was simple. One emperor could not manage such a vast realm alone. So two were appointed done in Rome, one in Constantinople. For a time, it brought stability, but it also split the empire's strength. The Eastern Roman Empire, later known as the Byzantine Empire, thrived under strong leadership and wealth drawn from trade. The Western Roman Empire, however, weakened by poverty, invasions, and internal strife, began to collapse. The economy deteriorated rapidly. Inflation soared. Roman coins were debased silver content replaced with cheaper metals. Trade slowed. Roads fell into disrepair. Cities shrank. The great Roman baths went dry. Fountains stopped flowing. In some regions, life began to resemble the very barbarism the Romans once despised. In 455 AD, another blow struck. The Vandals sailed across the Mediterranean and sacked Rome again. This time, the destruction was more thorough. Statues were smashed, treasures taken, women enslaved, children slaughtered. The Roman spirit dimmed further. The empire was no longer defending itself, it was simply surviving, barely. By 476 AD, the Western Roman Empire breathed its last. The final emperor, a young boy named Romulus Augustulus, was deposed by the Germanic general Odoacer. No army marched to restore him. No provinces rose in his name. Rome had fallen not with thunder, but with silence. The Senate, once the heartbeat of the Republic, sent no protest. The empire was gone. But was it really? Or had it simply transformed? The Eastern Roman Empire continued for nearly 1,000 more years, centered in Constantinople. It preserved Roman law, culture, and even language until it too fell in 1453 to the Ottoman Turks. But the idea of Rome never truly died. It echoed in the Catholic Church, which took on the Roman legacy. It inspired Charlemagne's Holy Roman Empire centuries later. It lived on in architecture, language, governance. Even today, the very foundations of Western civilization bear the fingerprints of Rome. So, what caused the fall of the Roman Empire? Historians have debated it for centuries. Was it moral decay, economic collapse, military weakness, religious change, external invasion, or perhaps all of these? Rome did not fall for one reason. It fell for many, each feeding the other like a chain reaction. It is the story of how power breeds complacency, how empires rise through discipline and fall through indulgence, how greatness must be preserved or it will rot from within. And yet, there's something deeply human about Rome's fall. It reminds us that no matter how strong, no system, no empire, no nation is immune to time, mismanagement, and change. It shows us that arrogance can be fatal, and that forgetting the values that built a society can hasten its end. Imagine, for a moment, walking through the ruins of the Roman Forum today. The broken columns, the worn stones, the empty spaces where senators once debated the future of the world. It is quiet now, except for tourists, pigeons, and the wind. But if you listen closely, you might still hear the whispers of empire of men who thought their greatness would last forever. Rome's story is not just ancient history. It's a mirror, a warning, a whisper from the past that asks, what holds us together, and what happens when we let it slip? Centuries after its fall, poets and politicians, emperors and rebels would all look back to Rome. They would ask, how could something so powerful disappear? And the answer remains the same. Slowly, tragically, inevitably. So the fall of the Roman Empire wasn't a single event. It was a slow death. A series of blows, from both within and without, until the body that once stretched across continents could no longer hold itself together. In its place, chaos reigned. The Middle Ages began, a time of darkness, but also of seeds of new nations, new ideas, new faiths. Rome had died, but its shadow stretched far across history. Even in death, it shaped the future. Even in ruins, it stood tall. Even today, its lessons remain. The story of Rome is the story of us. And if you found this story powerful, if it stirred something in you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Because history isn't just the past, it's the path we're walking now.